Welcome, my name is Thomas Blekman and this knowledge clip is about effectuation theory. Effectuation theory at Global School helps our students to rise as an individual, as entrepreneurs, as well as with their business. Effectuation is a module that's taught here in our schedule, and if you look closely, you will see it's at the second part of the first year. Effectuation theory consists of 5 principles that was actually established and coined by Saras Sarasvati. Saras Sarasvati was a professor from India who did her PhD in Washington. And there she wanted to study expert entrepreneurs because she really wanted to understand how they think, decide and act. And therefore she did her PhD on these principles that are later then coined effectuation. The way she went about was the fact that she did not believe that what we were taught about entrepreneurship was actually true. She thought that entrepreneurs that she had spoken to had a completely different way of making decisions and thinking about how to establish a business and grow it. So she wanted to do a new method, and which is brilliant, by the way, because what really sets her apart is the fact that she did a completely different way of researching. In the past, we would ask expert entrepreneurs, how did you get so successful? And then these expert entrepreneurs would tell us that they remember where they were, that if things wouldn't have turned out well, they would not have been here. Well, we really put them on a pedestal and we thought they had this different DNA and that you have to have this entrepreneurial DNA to be able to become an entrepreneur. Well, with Global School and based upon Saras Sarasvati's research, we are proving on a daily basis that that's not the case. The only thing that we need is people to really wanting to become an entrepreneur, and then the rest will follow. And I wrote 3 books about it, introducing it into the corporate world. I think it was around 2013. These were all steps towards excellence in entrepreneurship and mastering the subject, and therefore I really wanted it to be the cornerstone of what makes Global School Global School. Now let's start with the first principle. The first principle is called bird in hand, and bird in hand is the principle that teaches us that expert entrepreneurs, they start with the end in mind. Because what I explained earlier about Saras Sarasvati's research, she did not ask expert entrepreneurs, how did you become so successful? What Saras Sarasvati asked these expert entrepreneurs was she actually made a case study. And this case study was about a computer game teaching students entrepreneurship. And then she put a lot of marketing data in there, to what extent professors would like to teach with the computer game, to what extent the students would be willing to use the computer game to master the art of entrepreneurship. And then that case study she put in front of expert entrepreneurs. And mind you, the definition of expert entrepreneur is that an entrepreneur would at least 3 times have started a business from scratch all the way to an initial public offering, an IPO. And if you would have mastered that 3 times, the idea is, of course, that you got something figured out, right? And she asked them to create a business out of the concept and treat the case study as a concept. And then she asked these expert entrepreneurs, how would you make a business out of this concept? And then what was astonishing was that they flipped it completely. Where we always thought that these entrepreneurs were high risk takers and visionaries, they actually said, well, I don't think I'm going to do anything with this concept because I have no network, I have no knowledge of education market. This is not my cup of tea. With this first archetype, the bird in hand principle, it describes on what means you have available as an entrepreneur and how you're going to put them into practice to build something. So it actually starts with, who am I? Who am I as an entrepreneur? What drives me? So what's my purpose also? Very important question. Well, what do I know? What's my knowledge? What are my capabilities? Who do I know? Now it's all about the spark. So the spark is part of the bird in hand. What drives you? Why do I really want to become an entrepreneur? And a lot of people that join Global School, they don't have business ideas yet. They have only the intrinsic motivation, the willingness to start and become an entrepreneur. And then during the first year, they figure out what's important to them, what drives them. What business should they be in? Well, we know for a fact that entrepreneurship is super difficult to achieve, and therefore you really need to want it, and therefore intrinsic motivation and purpose is really, really important. It's fuel to your perseverance and endurance. So the bird in hand principle, super important. The second principle, and this goes back to Sarah Sarasvati's research, what she proved was that these entrepreneurs are not high risk takers. You're the complete opposite. Affordable loss is all about controlling the risk that you're taking, because they are aware that they cannot predict the future, and therefore they'll probably run into a lot of failure. Because they've failed a lot and they had to get up and try it again, they know they should not put all their eggs in one basket. Affordable loss teaches us only be willing to lose what you can afford to lose and don't risk anything else. Within Global School, we do a lot of validated testing so that we test our riskiest assumptions. We have multiple modules that, if you look at the gray bar, the business idea, people sometimes already have a concept. They have to have a general idea. And then from there, we go into the modules, anthropology, for instance, the first one, and that is to really understand the context in which you are trying to achieve your business idea. There you go out to try to understand the market. I have an example of a student that wanted to get into healthcare, but healthcare is a super closed market. They don't let in people that are not from the healthcare ecosystem. They are super protective, and therefore he could not get in, even though he had the best intentions in the world. Now, value creation goes one step further. That's pinpointing the right customer segment. So within the market, this is my ideal customer. Why is that an ideal customer? Trying to understand the needs, the pains, the gains from a customer. The job to be done. A whole video about that also. After you've understood the customer, you start trying to really turn your business idea into a value proposition. A value proposition tailored to the specific customer. That happens within Lean Startup. And there you test your solution and you really validate your riskiest assumptions about your solution. And then once you have that product market fit designed and tested, then you build a business model around it. Once you have the business model, you still need the pricing model. So that's why lean pricing is the last module in this list. But these are all like little Lego bricks that build your business. Now we do that because of affordable loss. You don't risk as much as if you would just go into a market and go do. And there are some entrepreneurs that became highly successful because they did it that way. But that percentage is actually super small. Now, the third principle is the crazy quilt. And this is a principle that I always have to explain a little bit, because it is two pieces of cloth stitched together. And these pieces of cloth that make up the quilt are actually parties working together. And the stitching, the thread, is actually symbolizing commitment to one another. And the crazy, by the way, is not the loony and the insane. It is the unexpected collaborations. And you see this a lot more now than you did in the past in bigger industries. If you look, for instance, at the example, Vattenfall is a energy utility company, and Volvo, well, you know, of course, from the cars. These two work together to develop and to speed up their development of hybrid cars. And within Vattenfall, they learned a lot from Volvo about cars, and Volvo learned a lot from Vattenfall about how to deal with energy. The more you collaborate in Quilts, the more bird in hand you get available, because you not only get the money available, you also get the knowledge available, you get the network available, you get the assets available. So you see how the bird in hand, the affordable loss, and the crazy quilt connect together, right? You've probably all learned this saying, if the world gives you lemons, make lemonade, right? This is where the lemon stands for a unexpected surprise, something that you didn't expect. Could be positive, then it's a sweet lemon, and then it's an opportunity, something you learn, and then you really go into that, something you hadn't planned, but because the opportunity is there, you go in for it to really seize the opportunity. But if it is sour, then it's something that you didn't expect, and it's something that happens to you. We see that expert entrepreneurs are really fast in dealing with disappointment and nasty surprises, and they cope with it. Like within COVID, a lot of good entrepreneurs really came out on top because they adjusted and they adapted quickly. The lemonade principle is all about coping and dealing with what's happening. Now, the last principle, the fifth one, is the pilot in the plane. And the pilot in the plane principle is all about the taking ownership, having an opinion, caring, wanting to achieve something, going into the cockpit. So we're actually looking to you and expecting you to become the pilot in the plane and that you actually apply the other 4 principles. So that you start thinking, okay, well, what are my means? How can I organize? How can I create a quilt? To what extent do I need to create quilts so that I can afford the risks that I have to take to actually try this on the market? Then deal with whatever is going to happen, which is the laminate. So you see that all these 5 are all coming in with a package. And it's not a method. It's not a technique. There are principles. It's ways to cope with problem solving. It is a way to start trying something, but it's a long journey, and therefore you need to start early. That's one of the key reasons why we started Global School. And I'll prove to you that this is what expert entrepreneurs do with a video from Sir Richard Branson. He's the founder, of course, of Virgin, and this is a little video. It's an old one, but it really gets the message across.
You know, when we started the airline 25 years ago this year, you know, I went to Boeing. I remember the telephone call. Hello, this is Richard Branson. I wonder whether you could sell me a second-hand 747. What's the name of your business? Virgin. What do you do? We have a record company. I've got great bands like the Sex Pistols, the Rolling Stones. And there was a long pause, and then instead of putting the phone down, the guy said, well, we'll send a salesman over, and as long as your airline goes further than your name suggests, we'll let you have a plane. And but the key point there was we said to Boeing, look, we don't know whether this is going to work out. You know, we realize it's risky. We think that there's a gap in the market. We think that people want a quality airline. We want to be able to hand the plane back at the end of the first 12 months if it doesn't work out. And that was the element of protecting the downside, and that's, you know, the critical thing in any move you make in business. Yeah.
So I hope that you recognize these principles also in his story. Virgin has a lot of businesses, right? I think there are 80 or maybe even 90 or more businesses that are all under the umbrella of Virgin. And the thing that ties them together is that they get into markets where customers are not served well. Because the thing that they bring in is excellent customer services. That's also why they wanted to get into Virgin Airlines, is because they wanted to do a better job in servicing the customers. If you look at affordable loss, they didn't start with a big business plan with all these planes and all these ground personnel. And no, they started with one second-hand, mind you, Boeing 747. They created a crazy quilt with Boeing. Probably they negotiated from Boeing's end that if it is successful, that they would be the supplier of the plane. So these are the 5 principles of effectuation. And I am really thankful for Sarah Sarasvati, but also Nicholas Jew, Stuart Reed, that they put in effort with this type of research, because I think it's super, super valuable. And I think that these effectuation principles are a really well-kept academic secret. Even still, even though there are books on the market, a lot of academics don't understand the true value of effectuation, that they don't understand because they haven't been entrepreneurs themselves. So they cannot understand the value of them. But what we see in our teaching is that this module is one of the most valuable modules for the students, because it really allows them to get started and to make their concepts smaller. In the next videos, we're also going to be looking at the combination of effectuation with the business model canvas, as well as effectuation in combination with what I called the effectuator's roadmap. That is to plan your steps moving forward. So I really hope that you tune into those videos as well, and that it will help you to rise as an entrepreneur and rise with your business. Thanks for watching. See you next time.